Hi there. In this video we are going to go over questions 21 through 40 of the review sheet, so be sure you have your review sheet handy, and again, if you have any questions, maybe star them on your paper and shoot me an email or something and come talk to me in case you don't understand something. But otherwise, we are going to go ahead and start off with question 1. So question 21 talks about intervertebral disc. So these are the disc in your back. So in between the bones there's like a little pad of cartilage, just so it can move more freely and you can actually bend. But they are actually composed of something called fibrocartilage. Oops, I guess I didn't need to write cartilage since now it's there twice. Sorry about that. But intervertebral discs are made out of fibrocartilage. However, the most abundant type of cartilage in your body is hyaline cartilage. So fibrocartilage makes up the disc in your back, but the most abundant type is actually hyaline cartilage. Both of them are super slow to heal because they have a poor blood supply. So they have a poor blood supply, which means not a whole lot of nutrients and oxygen get to that site, so it takes it much longer to heal. So any injuries that you have that involve like tendons, ligaments, anything with cartilage are just really slow to heal because they have such a poor blood supply. Question 22 asks for the cross markings of skeletal muscle. This is what makes it look like a striped appearance, and they are called striations. So if you were to look at a piece of skeletal muscle underneath a microscope, it would look striped, and those stripes are actually called striations. Question 23 says cells of blank muscle tissue have many nuclei, and that would be skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle in one cell has multiple nuclei, whereas in question, let me see where we talked about cardiac muscle cells. Question 13, we wrote that it has a single nucleus, whereas skeletal muscle, I spelled that totally wrong, sorry. Skeletal muscle actually has multiple nuclei per cell. Question 24, true or false, epithelial tissue is vascular? The answer to this is false. It is not vascular, it is actually avascular. So what that means is if something is vascular, that means it has blood supply, whereas epithelial tissue does not. It does not have blood vessels, so we're going to put an A on in front. So epithelial tissue is actually avascular. 25, what process of a neuron receives messages? That would be a dendrite. So a dendrite is going to actually receive a message, and then when it sends a message from the cell body, that is an axon. So a dendrite is going to receive messages, and an axon will send the message along. Question 26, the science that deals with the study of tissues, that is known as histology. So histology is the study of tissues. And then what type of tissue, connective tissue, is most abundant? And the answer here is areolar. So 27 is areolar. 28, a type of simple squamous. Remember, simple squamous was the one that's involved with diffusion, so it's very thin, that lines the heart, blood vessels, and lymphatic vessels, is known as endothelium. Okay. 29, what organ in the body would you find reticular fibers? You would find reticular fibers in any soft organ, so especially your spleen and your lymph nodes. So any that are kind of soft organs, you would find reticular fibers. So your spleen and your lymph nodes. Question 30 asks, what does it mean if an axon is myelinated, and what does the myelin sheath do? Well, if something is myelinated, that means it contains a myelin sheath, which all that is kind of like a white fat material. And basically what this does is it covers the axon. Remember, the axon is the little process on a neuron that sends out messages. So it's a white fattish material, covers the axon, and basically it will speed up nerve impulses. You can think of it kind of like the insulation like on a power cord, kind of like that black wrapping around it. It kind of keeps things from misfiring. So it's just a white fattish material that covers the axon, and it will help speed up a nerve impulse. Question 21 says ciliated CNS glia cells. So what that's saying is cells in your central nervous system that line the cavities of the brain and the spinal cord and will help move cerebrospinal fluid around. They are called ependymal cells. I hope I spelled that right. Ependymal cells. And basically they have little cilia on them that beat back and forth, and that will help circulate this fluid throughout your brain and your spinal cord. Question 32 asks what neurons function in connecting other neurons, and those would be association neurons. So any type of neuron that connects one neuron to another is known as an association neuron. And then the substance that's released at the endings of an axon to propagate means to continue on, a nerve impulse is called a neurotransmitter. So neurotransmitters help the message continue. So they will help stimulate more neurons along the way. So that is a neurotransmitter. Question 34, what separates the two hemispheres in half? So this is talking about your brain. So you have a left and a right hemisphere, and you have kind of like a ridge. And that thing that separates them is called a longitudinal fissure. So the longitudinal fissure is what separates the two hemispheres in half. And then in terms of a reflex, you know, if someone goes to hit you, you move back. If you touch something hot, you instantly move your hand back. Well, it has a sequence of how your body reacts to that stimuli whenever it's changing. So the first thing, just be sure that you could recognize this pathway in order. You won't have to write it, just a multiple choice question. It has a receptor, so that's going to sense a chain. Then a sensory neuron will take that message to a control center. And normally that's the brain. It decides what to do. So it goes receptor, sensory neuron, control center, which then will send, I'm going to run out of space here. It'll send a message to a motor neuron telling it what to do, how to react, and that will tell an effector what to do. So these are your 5 things you should be able to recognize in order. So the receptor senses a change. A sensory neuron takes that message to the control center, the brain. Then a motor neuron sends a message back of what to do, and then the effector does it. So this is what is known as a reflex arc. Alrighty, question 36 asks you to list the 3 parts of the brainstem, and that is your midbrain, your pons, and the medulla. Or if you want to put medulla oblongata, you can. It's the same thing. Okay. What would happen if you had damage to your Broca's area? Remember, it affects speech, so your speech would probably be impaired. Okay, you might say the wrong words when you're looking at something. You may not remember the word. Anything to do with speech could be damaged. So that is your Broca's area. Remember, that's in your frontal lobe. Question 38, what part of the brainstem plays a conscious role in your awake sleep cycle? Remember, that is your reticular formation. Or if you see reticular activating system, it's the same thing. So reticular formation, reticular activating system, they're all the same. But this is what controls your sleep cycle. So if you were to damage this, you would end up in a coma. And then what does the hypothalamus control? It's kind of, the question is what doesn't it control, but it does a lot of things. It's going to help regulate temperature. So regulate temperature, water balance, metabolism, it's going to regulate the pituitary gland, and involved with controlling thirst, hunger, pain, and pleasure. So there's a lot going on here. So again, be sure if you saw a description and a multiple choice question that you could pick the right one. So there's a lot going on. And remember, I always told you all else fails, put hypothalamus. And then our last question in this video, it asks, what does the medulla oblongata control? Remember, it controls heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, swallowing, and vomiting. So again, be sure, you won't have to list them out, but be sure if you saw a description that you can match these things up with your medulla. All right, so that is the end of this video. So you should be done with 40 questions up to this point, so 2/3 of the sheet. Once you're ready to continue, if you'll go to the next video to finish up your review sheet.